Long ago, when the sea thundered against the shores and the skies were alive with the shimmering trails of spirits, a young woman named Maluya was born at the edge of the greatest volcano on the island. She was called the Volcano Maiden, for she loved the roar of lava and the hiss of steam more than the gentle tide of the sea. She would wander the blackened slopes where molten rivers cut through stone, and her heart would race whenever a gush of fiery magma erupted from the crater's mouth. From the time she could walk, she felt the presence of an ancient power in the volcanic rock beneath her feet, something old and potent that dwelled deep in the belly of the earth. Each sunrise, Maluya offered a chant to the volcano, gently scattering flower petals along the edge of the crater in gratitude for its heat and light. She believed that the volcano was part of her spirit, that they shared a breath and a heartbeat. Others feared the crater's fiery wrath, but she found calm in its rumbling. She listened closely and felt the mountain hum with a slumbering consciousness. And in that unspoken conversation, she knew the time might come when the volcano would awaken more fiercely than ever before. When Maluya turned 16, she began training under the Wisdom Keeper, an elder named Kaimi. He taught her the songs of creation, the sacred dances to appease the gods, and the lore passed down by generations of seers. Kaimi could sense Maluhia's undeniable bond with the living flame, so he spoke of an ancient prophecy. In a time of chaos, an orphan daughter of the volcano would awaken a spirit forged of molten rock and burning fury. The prophecy was vague, warning that such power could either restore harmony or unleash unspeakable destruction. The old gods who ruled these lands were harsh. They demanded offerings of fruit, fish, and sometimes greater sacrifices lives that Maluhia's community could hardly spare. Yet, no matter how devoutly the people sacrificed, the gods' hunger was never fully satisfied. They existed beyond mortal comprehension, but their wrath felt undeniably present. Storms that battered fishing canoes, droughts that withered taro patches, and roiling tidal waves that swallowed entire villages. People prayed that one day the gods would relent. Rumors spread that the eldest of these gods, an ancient deity named Laukapu, had grown corrupt with power. His once balanced rule had twisted into tyranny. He demanded the greatest sacrifices and cloaked the island in ash-laden storms to remind mortals of his might. In hushed circles after sunset, families admitted their fear that Laukapu's dark appetites controlled the other gods. Each new cycle of devastation came with calls for more tributes. And still, the islanders had no relief. One fateful dawn, Kaimi met Maluhia by the sacred crater. His wizened eyes were shadowed by worry. Laukapu's demands had escalated violently. 2 families had lost their homes to scorching storms. The very lava rivers that once gave life scarred the earth indiscriminately now, and even the sea had withdrawn its bounty. Kaimi explained that the people could not survive another season of extortion. Citing the prophecy, he told Maluhia that if she was indeed the chosen, she might be their only hope. She must find a way to awaken a guardian from within the volcano, a being able to stand against Laukapu. Yet the conjuring required an immense risk. Summoning a being from live magma demanded more than simple incantations. It required sacrifice of spirit, the melding of mortal and elemental power in ways that threatened to consume the summoner. Kaimi handed her a small carved staff, crowned with a shard of obsidian. This staff, he explained, was a channel for a portion of her life force. She would need to infuse it into a core of molten magma to create the Golem. If successful, the creature's will would answer her commands. But if her focus wavered, it could run wild, an untamable inferno that could ravage the entire island. Maluhia accepted the staff, her resolve firm. The faithful community had risked everything to appease the gods, especially Laukapu, and had received nothing but devastation in return. Haunted by the starving faces of children clutching their mothers, and elders who had turned hollow with despair, She channeled her grief and anger into her purpose. She climbed higher up the volcano's slope than ever before, stepping carefully over broken rocks and narrow ledges. Smoke hung in the air, a veil that reddened her eyes and burned her lungs. She pressed onward until she found a place where the volcano's blood streams of glowing lava flowed steadily. Each rolled off the moving river in waves, making the air shimmer. Her heart pounded in her chest, knowing that here, in the sweltering proximity to the Earth's fury, she was about to attempt something the legends had warned might be impossible. Steeling her courage, she dipped the staff's obsidian tip into the lava's glare. Her first incantation, taught by Kaimi, was a chant of supplication. She uttered the old words, her voice trembling with both reverence and tension. The flow of lava responded, small bubbles forming and bursting at the surface, sending bursts of molten drops upward. The second chant was one of shaping, a keening melody meant to coax the lava from chaos into form. She pressed the staff deeper, her arms shaking with the force that built up around her. Steam and sparks hissed, singeing the edges of her long black hair, and the very ground under her feet trembled. Sweat poured down her forehead, and she felt her strength begin to ebb, as though the staff were siphoning more than her voice. That was when she reached deep into her heart and recalled the faces she wanted to protect. Her people who believed in her, who had endured enough torment. She channeled her compassion and fury in equal measure, letting them flow through her body like molten streams, until the staff glowed with an intense inner light. The obsidian tip in the lava began to pulse, forging a new shape within the molten flow. Gouts of flame and embers shot upward as the golem slowly emerged. First came an arm, broad and jagged, streaming with liquid fire. Then rose a torso, thick and rippling with boiling rock, and finally a massive head with ember-like eyes. As the creature crawled out of the flow, clumps of magma cooled across its back, forming a blackened crust that glowed red at the crack. It stood on two powerful legs, easily towering over Maluhya, yet it did not attack. Kneeling before her, it bowed its gargantuan head, acknowledging her as its maker and mistress. She named it Lelia, reference to the explosive leaps of lava that spawned it. Leli's presence radiated intense heat, warming the air around them until it was almost suffocating. But Maluhya felt neither fear nor discomfort. The bond they shared ran deeper than mere creation. She could sense the living lava within Lele burning in time with her heartbeat. She quickly realized that she needed to maintain careful control. If her emotions flared out of balance, Lele's fury could mount uncontrollably and wreak destruction. Guided by her instincts, Maluhya marched Lele down the side of the mountain, where she came face to face with Kaimi and a gathering of villagers. Their eyes widened with awe and no small amount of trepidation. Throughout history, no mortal had claimed such power without paying a heavy price. Even Kaimi could not entirely hide the unease on his face. Nonetheless, the people recognized that Maluhya now possessed the guardian they so desperately needed to challenge Laukapu. Many of them bowed to her, seeing her as the one who had harnessed the volcano's wrath for the sake of the helpless. However, word spread quickly that an abomination of molten rock and captive flame had appeared on the island. Hosts of lesser gods who served Laukapu prepared to confront this unnatural creation. At once, storms gathered at the horizon, the sky darkening with clouds. Lightning sliced the heavens, and the wind bent palm trees to their breaking point. Fear quaked through the villages as an omen of the gods' displeasure. Maluhya understood that they could not afford to wait for Laukapu's wrath to gather full steam. They needed to strike first. As the storms battered the shore, Maluhya set out with Lele for the heart of the island, where an ancient temple rose among thick tropical forests. Carved from black volcanic stone, the temple had an open courtyard that served as Laukapu's seat of power. The villagers spoke of hidden tunnels beneath, where primordial energies churned, fueling the old god's dominion. She marched through the wet undergrowth, the rain hissing off Lili's fiery form, which left sizzling footprints in the soaked loam. The lesser gods are manifested as winged creatures with obsidian feathers. Others as serpentine spirits swirling with smoke rushed to attack. One soared overhead, releasing shards of cutting wind. Another rose like a twisting column of black smog. The chaos hammered at Malui's senses, threatening to break her concentration, but her resolve burned bright. Channeling her thoughts through the staff connected to Leela's molten heart, she commanded the golem to defend them. Great gouts of flame erupted from Leela's fists, turning wind-blown barbs to ash and dispersing smoke spirits in sizzling bursts of steam. The path of destruction led them closer to the temple, but the punishment inflicted on the lesser gods began to fuel the swirling tempest overhead. For every strike Lele delivered, a new volley of lightning rained down, scorching the earth and lashing at the golem's magma skin. Twice, arcs of lightning speared through Lele's torso, momentarily carving tunnels in its molten core, which then quickly refused with scorching fury. Maluhia felt every blow mirrored as waves of dizziness. If Lele took too much punishment, she would lose her hold on it, or worse, be consumed by the feedback of volatile energy passing through them. Kami and a few valiant villagers raced behind to aid her. One by one, they warded off smaller spirits with chants and prayers, forging protective circles with shells and talismans. Under the onslaught, Maluhia realized the power the old gods wielded. It was a staggering force, older than memory, capable of shattering mountains if unleashed. Yet she steeled herself with the knowledge that her bond to the volcano was unwavering, and the prophecy had given her hope that such a confrontation could succeed. When they reached the temple's courtyard at dusk, the sky was a swirl of red and black clouds. A single colossal figure sat upon a basalt throne. Laukapu exuded an air of volcanic might, his skin dark as cooled obsidian. His eyes gleamed with the raging glow of magma, and electricity danced across his shoulders like living serpents. He regarded Maluhia with a curious, scornful expression, as though she were a naive child brandishing a stolen weapon. "I am beyond mortal challenges," Laukapu thundered. "Your creation will only feed my power. Your meager attempts amuse me." His voice echoed, shaking the foundation of the temple. The old god lifted a hand, and the winds responded violently, buffeting Maluhia and her allies with a chorus of reverberating thunder. Torrents of rain lashed at Lele's searing body, sizzling into steam as soon as they touched. Maluhia advanced, staff clutched in her hand, her face drawn in fierce determination. "Your tyranny has devoured our land, imprisoned our hope. We do not bow to you anymore." "Laukapu," she shouted, since Lele's anger intensifying, feeding on her own defiance. The old god rose from his throne, sweeping an arm across the courtyard. Lightning leapt from his fingertips, arcing toward Lele. At Maluhia's silent command, the magma golem raised both arms and sent forth a roaring plume of fire. The two forces collided in mid-air, lightning dancing through swirling flames. Sparks and coals showered the courtyard as the watchers cowered behind half-collapsed walls. For a moment, Lele's fire pressed Laukapu's lightning back, refusing to yield. But the old god's fury surged, and the lightning overwhelmed the flame, striking Lele full in the chest. A rending crack resounded. Lele stumbled back, part of its molten torso solidifying to black stone under the intense impact. Wisps of steam and smoke escaped from the fractured crust. Maluhia gasped, clutching her chest as though the blow had landed on her own body. Pain flickered through the bond they shared. She struggled to regain control, chanting in a desperate voice to feed more heat into Lele's core. Slowly the golem's molten glow returned, but the wound did not completely seal. "You dare to shape the earth's blood in defiance of its rightful master?" Laukapu's voice boomed. "I am the guardian of the volcanoes, the conductor of storms. You are but a child playing with spark." "Then let the child's spark set fire to the tyrant's reign," Maluhia spat back. She poured her will into Lele, drawing upon her connection to the living volcano itself. Through the soles of her feet, she grounded herself to that churning wellspring of heat that had always felt like home. Suddenly, the temple floor cracked open. Lava gushed upward, as if summoned by her fury. The scorching tide swirling around Lele in a roiling embrace. Now shielded by that incandescent flow, the magma golem stepped forward with renewed power. Laukapu scowled, his thunderous eyes widening as the ground beneath him trembled. The old god raised his hands again, conjuring howling winds, but they only fanned the flames. Lightning crashed down from the heavens, yet each strike was met with surging walls of lava that diminished its force. Gradually, the swirling storm lost momentum, as if even the skies themselves hesitated at the raw volcanic energy surging out of the depths. Moment by moment, Maluhia felt hope grow within her. She could sense Laukapu's shock. Like all bullies, he had believed his power unassailable. Yet now he struggled. Something ancient and primal within the volcano responded to Maluhia's call, a spirit far older than Laukapu's reign. The flares of molten light danced with a furious joy, as though they had waited for a champion to rid the land of an overreaching deity. Lele strode into the center of the courtyard, molten fists raised. With a silent roar, the golem unleashed a torrent of flame that cracked the basalt throne, leaving molten fissures in its wake. Laukapu roared in rage, hurling spear-like bolts of lightning that lodged in the golem's arms and shoulders, but the unstoppable rush of lava from the ground kept Lele intact. In desperation, Laukapu tried to transform into pure energy, his body flickering with wild arcs of electricity. But the swirling volcanic currents tethered him, forcing him to remain anchored in physical form. The more he struggled, the more the searing molten flows chained him. Exhaust unleashed itself in Maluhia's trembling legs. The effort to maintain control of so much raw power threatened to tear her mind apart. She began to weave a final incantation, the words building in her throat even as her vision grew blurry. Summoning all she had left, she guided Lele's next strike, forging it from the very soul of the mountain. The golem thrust its immense hands into Laukapu's chest, where the old god's core glowed with a chaotic melding of lightning and stone. Sparks flashed in every direction as the golem's glowing claws tore into Laukapu's essence. A bellow erupted from Laukapu's lips, echoing over the battered temple walls. Energy erupted in swirling blasts, scorching the air. Maluhia was knocked backward, landing hard on the cracked basalt floor. She fought to remain conscious, her ears ringing. Through blurred eyes she saw Laukapu writhe, the lightning coursing around his form turning to white-hot arcs that danced uncontrollably. In that moment, the archaic deity's voice sounded not like thunder, but like a desperate plea, an agonized wail. She could barely comprehend what the final blow would do. Would it destroy Laukapu fully, or simply break his grip on the mortal realm? Either way, she felt a surge from within Lele, a final, fiery push that consumed Laukapu's struggling form. The lightning died out, replaced by a smouldering hush. Where the old god had stood, only scattered embers of obsidian glowed among fragments of molten rock. Darkness crept in, as the storm clouds above began to thin, letting a few shimmering stars peek through. With what remained of her strength, Maluhia reached out to Lele through their bond, commanding the golem to remain calm. If left unchecked, the unleashed fury might continue past Laukapu's destruction and threaten the entire island. Carefully, she guided it to release the rage, to cool from the inside, to cease the assault. Lele let out a final bellow, half in victory, half in lament, as it lowered its massive arms. The swirling lava receded into the cracks, leaving only a few glowing veins that pulsed through the blackened temple floor. Maluhia's heart slowed, relief mingling with apprehension. Kaime and a few villagers cautiously approached. They helped her to her feet. The once invincible throne had been reduced to molten rubble, and Laukapu's presence was gone from that place. Though the night still buzzed with uneasy energy, all could feel the shift. The old god's tyranny had ended. Yet Maluhia knew, even in her triumph, that new challenges might arise. Other forces, or the vacuum left by Laukapu's fall. But for now, her people had reclaimed their land from the yoke of a cruel deity. She looked up to Lele, the lava golem that towered in the courtyard amidst the ruins. Steam and mist rose from its surface, evaporating in the gentle drizzle that began to fall. The creature's ember eyes found hers, and she felt a pulse of kinship pass between them. Lele was more than just a weapon. It was the living embodiment of the island's spirit, shaped by her resolve and compassion. As new dawn light broke through thinning clouds, the scattering rays illuminated the temple's battered stones and the silent watchers. Over the following days, the storms receded. The villages that had cowered in fear re-emerged, tentatively celebrating their liberation. Fishermen cast nets into calmer waters, and the sea responded by giving bountiful catches. Taro crops, battered by constant deluges, now stood a chance to recover under gentler rains. Families who had been in hiding returned to salvage what was left of their dwellings, finding solidarity in rebuilding their community. Maluhia visited Kaimi every morning as the elder instructed her on how to maintain a safe equilibrium with Lele. The golem, a sentinel forged from Maluhia's spirit as much as the volcano's fire, needed guidance lest it become corrupted by free-floating energies or negative emotion. On more than one occasion, she soothed its anger when thunder rumbled on the horizon, reminding Lele that the threat was only natural rain clouds. Gradually, the islanders overcame their fear, viewing the huge molten guardian as a sign of renewal, of a new dawn free from the endless cruelty once imposed by Laukapu's tyranny. Yet Maluhia could not banish all worries from her mind. She wandered the shores at twilight, watching waves gently lap black sand beaches. She could not help but wonder if the pantheon beyond Laukapu would take vengeance. The lesser gods had scattered, but some may have gone into hiding, biding their time. Moreover, if her own will faltered, Lele might cause more harm than good. Still, she chose hope, for she had seen firsthand how resilience and compassion could harness the rawest forces of creation. Kaimi's final lesson came one afternoon under a quiet drizzle. He told her that the spirit of the gods was not inherently malevolent. It was the corruption of Laukapu's power that had turned them destructive. All living things, from the smallest fern to the mightiest volcano, demanded balance. Maluhia had restored that balance by confronting tyranny head-on. Now she would need to guard the island's harmony with the same unwavering resolve. She would bear the title of caretaker, not conqueror, as she guided her people and the molten guardian in fulfilling the prophecy's promise of restoration rather than ruin. The days that followed saw life returning to what it once was, and perhaps something more hopeful. Smoke still curled from the volcanic peaks. Yet this time it seemed less ominous, as if the land itself was breathing a sigh of relief. Children told stories around evening fires about the brave volcano maiden and her molten companion who faced down a god. Old fisherwomen sang the chant of deliverance, accompanied by the rhythmic pounding of drums that spoke of triumph and perseverance. And Maluhia often wandered to the lip of the volcano, her sanctuary. Standing upon the blackened rim, she would watch rivulets of molten rock glowing against the starlight. She felt her pulse align with the gentle rumble beneath her feet, connected to the boundless energy that shaped their world. The island was hers to protect, not as a dominator, but as a keeper of equilibrium. It was said that the volcano's fire was a reflection of the beating heart of the land, and she, the volcano maiden, was its speech and song. Lele remained by her side, silent and watchful. At her command, the golem would recede into the depths of the crater, becoming part of the volcanic flow. When needed, it would rise again, forging a living bastion of flame to defend a people who had found renewed faith in the balance between mortals and the unseen powers that crisscrossed their realm. The memory of Laukapu's fall served as a reminder to both spirits and mortals that cruelty and imbalance would no longer be tolerated. In this way, the island found an uneasy peace. Malahia's legend spread, told by travelers who glimpsed the mountain's great sentinel glowering from the crater rim at dusk. Some whispered that the volcano maiden had become a goddess in her own right, though if asked, Malahia would only smile softly and shake her head. She remained a daughter of the earth and fire, and fierce and compassionate. She had realized that any mortal who hears the cries of injustice and stands up, forging unity between humanity and nature's raw power, can become the voice of a volcano, the breath of the wind, or the guardian of an entire people. Still, on certain quiet nights, when an elusive hush fell across the land, she felt the rumble of distant thunder. A flicker of lightning might trace the horizon in silent arcs, almost like a restless spirit. She wondered if Laukapu had truly been destroyed, or merely banished to the realm beyond mortal sight, waiting for an opportunity to return. Within her, a steady determination swelled. If the old god or any threat should ever rear again, she remained ready, with a staff in her hands and a fiery guardian at her side, bound by the unbreakable bond of magma and will. The heart of the volcano would not be enslaved again. The land stood free, for as long as she and Lele stood together to defend it. And so the island, once held hostage by divine wrath, blossomed anew with an unshakable spirit. The people returned to their dances and songs, this time celebrating a living hope rather than appeasing an implacable fear. In their retellings, they revered the volcano maiden who shaped a brave magma golem to challenge the tyranny of an old god, revealing that even the mightiest calamities could be met with courage and compassion. In that shared legacy, the story of Malhuhia and Lele endured as a testament to the roar of molten depths harnessed in the name of freedom. And whenever the earth shuddered in the hush of night, those who knew the tale of the fiery rebellion found solace, knowing that somewhere upon the black volcanic rim, a guardian of flame watched over them, ensuring that the old gods would never again bind the will of mortals under the crush of storm and lava.